continue with the class on the molecular relationship, and I believe it was Solomon posted information on from Lucille Cedercrans on the synthetic ashram, and I read through that the entire chapter that the post came from, and I have a few comments to make on it. She kind of seems to be trying to create something like the molecule, but she doesn't seem to have all the details presented. But she makes the indicates that she was trying to establish with her group a group life similar and a link similar to what we're doing. Let me read a quote from her that's kind of in the direction of the molecule. All of those souls who function within the synthetic ashram must be brought together in the physical sense to create the vehicle within the three worlds of human endeavor through which the ashramic group consciousness, the ashramic plan, and the focus intent of divine ashramic purpose can move out into manifestation and into service activity. In other words, the function that is served is not just that of transmission of overshadowing concepts, the transmission of higher frequencies of energy, etc., into the incarnate group, but it is the focal point through which the interplay between that which is overshadowing and that which is incarnate takes place. So it sounds like she's kind of riding around the idea that when a group is linked, it can be overshadowed and produce a group life. She doesn't go into all the details, but as I said, what this will produce will be eyes that the masters and consciousness in our group that the masters themselves can use as a vehicle for their manifestation here on the earth. Because if a higher being, say, came to you and told you what to say and you said it, that would be really no different than him being there. In other words, say if Christ came to you and shared consciousness and you spoke his thoughts, it wouldn't be any different than him being here and actually speaking them. And so this is one of the ways that the externalization of the hierarchy will occur. Now, she speaks about the ashrama synthesis, and this is getting a lot of circulation around the internet, but I haven't seen anyone really explain what it is or how it's different from ashrams of the past. The main difference she talks about is emphasis will be on different rays and synthesizing these rays. And during the Piscean age, the main ray that was emphasized was ray 6. And this is a ray of idealism. The ideal was presented, and the ideal was the perfect man. But what she points out is the trouble with the ideals that were presented is that we weren't able to achieve them. They were just there for us. And we were supposed to come as close as possible, but none of us expected to be perfect like Jesus was. Jesus was up there at a higher grade than any of us, and he was the ideal, but very few Christians ever expected to reach his status. Well, with the incoming rays, she points out that we will reach that status. He says the ideal and was presented in the Piscean age. In the Aquarian age, we will actually manifest those ideals. But the ideals won't be manifest perhaps by perfection like when you imagine an ideal, people imagine total perfection. The regular Christian, when he visualizes Jesus being perfect, he visualizes him as never uttering a cuss word, never breaking a law, never doing anything wrong throughout his entire life. He just did everything just perfectly right, which is probably not the way at all. I mean, the Jewish people didn't think he was perfect at all. They accused him of drinking too much, eating too much, associating with prostitutes, working on Sunday or working on the Sabbath. And they thought there was a whole bunch of stuff wrong with the guy. So perfection is in the eye of the beholder, but the regular Christian, their ideal of Christ is just something far beyond anything that the regular Christian can ever get. So the best he can hope for is to grovel at the feet of Jesus and be saved. So Jesus says, your sins are washed away and you can come live with me forever. And so that's basically the way they look at it, is that they're never going to come anywhere close to accomplishing anything that Jesus did. But the best they can hope for is just to grovel and be taken into the arms of Jesus and live forever with him. So anyway, she talks about the synthetic ashram. In the past, we've each one of the rays has had ashrams, and they focused on the rays, and apparently the synthetic ashram, instead of focusing on 7 rays or the Piscean age ray of 6 and 2 and maybe 1 somewhat thrown in there, she wants us to focus on 1, 2, and 7, which goes along with DK's teachings, of course. 7 will be the main replacement of 6. Now, what's interesting about these 3 numbers is 2 of them are odd, connected with sending and male energy, and 1 of them is even, number 2. Number 2 was also a strong focus in the Piscean age, 2 and 6. So the Piscean age had a strong female polarity with 2 and 6, and some of 1. So, and then of course, all of the rays are into play there. But in the next age, we're going to have the focus more on the male energies of 1 and 7, with 2 balancing them all out. Now, 2 is also represents love wisdom, which is the major ray of our entire solar system. So every ray that is talked about with DK is a sub-ray of ray 2. So love is supposed to manifest no matter what we're doing with our impulses that come from the various rays that influence us. They're all tinctured by love, and the end result should be some type of manifestation of love wisdom. And so this is an important thing to realize. So she points out that the ideal was projected during the Piscean age, the ideal of the perfect individual, the ideal sacrifice, the ideal service, and all kinds of different things. Even people visualized the ideal government. They wrote treatises about it. And but he says in the Aquarian age, by ray 7, the difference between ray 7 and ray 6 is ray 6 presents the ideal, and ray 7 energies put together the pieces so that the ideal becomes a practical manifestation. And she points out that the problem with just the ideal in the past was we weren't able to achieve it. We just had it before us, but we had all kinds of ideals: peace on earth, goodwill to men, perfect government, perfect religion, perfect Christ, and we weren't able to achieve any of them. Well, this time in the Aquarian age, we're going to achieve, but it's going to be different than people think. In other words, the idea of perfection is in the mind of the beholder. But when the ideal manifests, it will be, certain flaws will also manifest along the way, but we're actually going to put pieces together so that we have working mechanisms for to create an age that like we haven't seen before in recorded history. And she talks about the difficulties in handling the spiritual work. A difficulty she had was she had to work to make a living, and so it was difficult for her to find time to do the spiritual work. And when the Aquarian age moves in, people will have more free time to do the spiritual work. Jesus says you cannot serve God and mammon, and it's very difficult. And there's been a handful of people that kind of freed themselves up. The Buddha was an interesting example. He was even before the Piscean age, of course, but some of those Buddhists, all they have is like one change of clothes. No change of clothes, just a clothes, a robe, and the Buddha had a bowl for rice, and that was all he owned. And when he got hungry, he went around asking for food and ate a little bit of rice every day, and that took care of his needs. But um, this type of situation is impractical for teachers in our current age. We're into the system. We have to have computers, the internet, housing, and so we have to make a certain amount of money. And so making that money is very difficult for the spiritual oriented person. I've noticed there are certain new age people that do make pretty good money, but I've noticed that these type of people are often very focused on money more than spiritual essence. And they're some of them are pretty good at it, but they're focused on money more than service. Some of them grab onto a spiritual um, ideology as a mechanism to make money rather than as a mechanism for service. And sadly, these people make a lot more money and bring in a lot more material things than many of the people that are totally dedicated. Uh, Many people that I know of that are just totally dedicated to the spiritual work are just really dirt poor. I mean, they have a hard time making enough money to survive on. And this is kind of focused around. I was talking about each one of us have a certain lesson to learn. That was kind of around my lesson, and I had to learn to handle this situation of balancing off making money as well as the doing the spiritual work. And sometimes it's very difficult. When the time came for me to begin my this last series of writing back in what year was it? 1998. I began writing The Immortal, but I was dedicated to mastering the art of making a living. And I found myself working till 2 a.m. almost every morning and to prepare everything we needed, the products for our customers. And the next day it was just working like crazy. And then I had to write The Immortal. So how in the world was I going to find time to write The Immortal? Well, I thought the only time I had was after 2. So I dedicated my time between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. to write. And almost all the writings you see in the archives are written between 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. when I was working 80 hours a week just to keep body and soul together. So it took a lot of sacrifice. And I gained weight during that time because I didn't put any attention on anything except getting those writings out, the books out, and the thousands of articles that I wrote. And that was the only way I could find the time. And when I was working like about 80 hours a week. So there is a way to do almost everything. Now, fortunately, I had a lot more energy then than I have now. Now I don't have to work that many hours. I still take care of some old customers, but I have a lot more time. But I don't think I would have the energy to do that over if I had to do it at my age. And I'm glad I don't have to. But I have more time now, but I don't have as intensive energy as I did back then. But thank God I do have more free time. So as I look back, I can see that, thankful I was able to put out as much material as I did. In fact, I went 10 years without even reading a book because all I was doing was working and writing. And that was about it. But so anyway, she had the same problem, and she says that during the Aquarian age, the people will have their needs taken care of so that they won't have to spend a lot of excess time in making a living. Now, people now have to make a living, and the spiritual oriented people often complain that this interferes with their working on the path to spirit. And so as the Aquarian age enters, the spiritual people will be able to dedicate more time toward their spiritual path. And this will be a really good thing of the Aquarian age. And this is one thing that Lucille pointed out that really she was really looking forward to seeing accomplished. Okay, any questions or comments on that before we move on?
Yeah, you also have quite a few thousand helpers that you've gained over the last 20 some odd years.
Yeah. Yeah, we've never hit anything that went viral yet. Hopefully that is to come, but I've got the people that have paid attention are really good, solid people like the ones that's here right now. So certainly appreciate that. And
I think one of the things you have to do is give them a project to work on or give them something to do as opposed to just having them hanging around, you know.
yeah, so you guys want more assignments, do you?
Casey does.
There's always a project up there if you reach up and pull it down.
Yeah.
And you got to follow through with what you pull down.
Yeah, we don't want to interfere too much with your power to initiate. And so initiate as much as possible and encourage each other. And I will, one thing people in the group can do is when you see a post that we make that you think is good, well, share it just as much as you can in other groups and with other people. And I notice Facebook is now putting the amount of outreach each post gets, and apparently I don't know what they mean by outreach, but some of them are, it says maybe 1,000 people reached, it says, by a post in the Keys where that maybe has just a dozen likes. So it's interesting. I don't know exactly what that means, but it's a new piece of information they put on there.
I think it means that they've seen the post or scrolled past it. Somehow it's been visible on their screen. That's my guess is what that would mean.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah.
It says seen by, and it has a number of people who've seen it.
Yeah, seen by. So that must, some of them are getting pretty good circulation. So that's encouraging. Okay, it says, well, read a couple things she said about Ray 7. Ray 7 is kind of a mysterious ray. Tibetan calls it the ray of ceremonial magic, and that it's very closely linked to Ray 1. And when we switch over to this ray, it's going to be switch from the consciousness of humanity from being centered on emotion to mind, and mind in a way that we haven't seen before. She says, she talks about in the past, mind has been very closely connected to Ray 3, where it's very calculating, like 1 + 1 = 2 and so on. But with Ray 7, it's a similar type, and it's a breakoff associated with Ray 3, but it's more synthetic, where pieces are put together. And but that's my only complaint about her article. It's an interesting article on synthesis, but she doesn't really explain a lot about how these synthetic groups are going to be different than old groups, except for the emphasis on Ray 7. And so that's interesting. A lot of, I notice a number of people are putting emphasis on synthesis, or yoga synthesis, the synthetic ashram. This is in circulation. But, and she says that she indicated by the turn of the century, there'd be a lot of synthetic ashrams around, but we haven't really seen that materialize. So she was a little bit optimistic there. But the question is, where are the synthetic ashrams? And the synthetic ashrams will be those that take the various pieces and put them together. Or you could call us an ashram. An ashram is merely a group which is.
So that's exactly what we're trying to do here. We're trying to be inclusive and not separative.
Yeah, yeah. And most
Like difference between math and sacred geometry is what we're getting involved with.
Yeah, it's interesting to examine the groups that are out there. There are groups that are just put together for teaching. Some groups have a purpose, like they get together and meditate to send out good vibes to the world, to bring peace on earth and that type of thing. But there's not very many groups that has a specific purpose that requires some type of action to synthesize with other groups. And so now when we, Stephen, who's talked last week on 2025, he's the head of a group on Facebook. And so we kind of had a synthesis between the two groups when he came and talked to us. And this is something he felt really good about, and he said we need to do more of this. And so I think this is true, that this was we need more cooperation between the groups.
I think we discussed this in our last meeting, that this is what one of our goals is to create synthesis of many world groups, and you realize that it can't work when there are our own special little flavor of teaching.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is put together a manifesto of goodwill. I'm going to try to find time to write up a rough draft of this week, and then we're going to present it to various groups. And if some group doesn't like the way it's worded, they can suggest a different wording, and we'll eventually, the idea is to wind up with a wording that all esoteric groups can feel comfortable embracing. And it probably won't happen on any first draft. Okay, we'll wind up here. She says several things about the seventh ray. Seventh ray is kind of a mysterious ray, but it governs the sign of Aquarius and the Aquarian age. She says this is the meaning of the new seventh ray civilization, that it brings the ideal into the field of activity. He says, now first, aside from the responsibility for creating in its own instrument, it is concerned with the building of the new civilization. The shifting of the present civilization without utter destruction, hopefully, from one major expression to another major expression, from the expression of the sixth ray of devotion to the expression of divine law and order, or the order of man. Divine order of man, she calls it. While volumes could be written concerning this alone, I must take from within the field of knowledge regarding this particular aspect a few concepts which will serve to broaden your consciousness and to clarify your understanding. And then she goes back to ray 3. We're going to switch from ray 3 to ray 7. And here's what she says about ray 3 that we're moving away from to ray 7. It is somewhat necessary to understand the differences between the third and seventh ray expression before you can begin to comprehend the significance of this particular shift. The third ray deals with what I refer to as numerical magic or numerical creativity. It deals with facts, figures, with organization of energy, force, substance of the system, whether the system be an overall one life, a humanity in its totality, or a government or a business, etc., into an activity which will result in a specific detailed goal within a given period of time. It does not deal, as is worked out by the consciousness of humanity in its present evolutionary status, with purpose. It does not deal with the goal that goes beyond a particular incarnation or the interest of a few who are concerned with it. The third ray expression, insofar as organization is concerned, deals with actualities as they are presently manifested for the purpose of producing another actuality, which is the logical conclusion of this particular organization, energy, force, and substance. In other words, the end is obvious from the beginning. The beginning is not actually dictated by the end. The third ray expression deals in a very real sense with the materialistic form, the materialistic value of the form, rather than with any spiritual value which the form may have. So the third ray, she says, is, you go from A to B to C, but the seventh ray will be more synthetic. It's influenced more by the intuition. And when the seventh ray comes into power, with third ray, you learn by books, you learn by a method like algebra, you learn your equations, and you use this equation to produce a certain result. With the seventh ray, it's more intuitive, so you'll pick up the concept more. You pick up the concept and then figure out how to manifest that concept. And this is why the sixth ray of idealism was important, because the ideal give us the concepts. For the past over 2,000 years, we've had all kinds of ideals presented in various writings, in various movements, and now we have to intuitively pick up how to manifest those. And it's not, we won't get it so much from reading a book or taking a class, but we'll get it by just picking it up by individual as well as group connections to higher sources.
JJ,
Yeah.
may I just ask, so with the seventh ray intuition aspect, so are you saying that we can bypass the ray 3 need to lay the foundation through study and reading, or am I understanding that correctly?
No, all the rays are always in play, and ray 3 is very strong. Matter of fact, the Earth itself is on ray 3, okay? And we're very strongly connected to Saturn, which is also on ray 3. And Jehovah was a representative of the Saturnian energies. And so that was ray 3. And the Jewish religion very focused on ray 3. So ray 3, the main thing with connection with ray 3 is the law of economy. In other words, when creation takes place through ray 3 energies, everything, intelligence causes everything to come together in the most economical form with the least application of energy. In other words, ray 3 is applying the Rubik's Cube. You would make this correct move every time, okay, to solve Rubik's Cube. To solve it, you first of all figure everything you were doing wrong, and then you correct it, and eventually you're able to follow the law of economy perfectly. So these people that can do Rubik's Cube in less than a minute have done it so much that they are following the law of economy. In other words, ray 3 perfectly to be able to make the exact moves with the least effort, the least amount of time, and the least mistakes. And so the law of economy is responsible for creating everything that's in the world of form. And in the world of form, from the atom, which is perfect, it follows the law of economy, and every helium atom and hydrogen atom is the same as every other hydrogen atom in the way it functions, because they all follow this law of economy. Now, ray 7 is a little bit different in the fact that with ray 3 energy, you have to go through a learning process to learn the bits and pieces. You learn the bits and pieces about how everything is accomplished. With ray 7, you contact the intuitive level and you get the big picture. And from the big picture, you're able to put the things together. So there's two ways to learn. Ray 3 type of learning is where, let's say you want to be,
More scientific, I think, isn't it? Ray 3 is more scientific minded.
well, yeah, let's say you wanted to be a scientist. Yeah, somebody needs quieted there. Let's say you wanted to be a scientist. So I want to be a scientist. So you go to school and you learned all kinds of math and equations, and you learn piece by piece by piece, and you eventually are able to put pieces together and see a picture. But with ray 7 type learning, you see the picture first. And so you can wind up manifesting the picture much quickly and much more efficiently because you see the whole picture first. You don't even need to take a class on a college course on science. You can figure it all out on your own with materials you have at your disposal because you see the picture that you want to create. And so it's kind of principles versus data. Remember, we talked about this quite a bit. The principle, it takes maybe 1,000 pieces of data to put together one principle. But if you understand the principle and how something works, then you can manifest all kinds of data that is usable just from understanding that one principle. So as I see it, this is how ray 7 is going to be a little bit different, as people are going to be more into seeing the whole rather than the part as we move into the new age. Okay, we're near the end of the class. Any comments, questions before we?
This is by Lucille Cedercrans.
What'd you say?
I said this stuff that you're talking about is from Lucille Cedercrans.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I've read through her, all of her books. It was several years ago, so I don't remember all the details, but they were pretty good. They're not as accurate, I don't think, as Bailey books, but they got some good material in there. And I give Ruth posted my comments on her on the keys if you want to look them up.
Also, I might add something to help you, Anthony, is that there's seven rays, the three major rays. Every human being is either basically ray 1, which is leaders, say like leadership, ray 2, which is the love ray, and ray 3, which is more scientific ray. So you're predominantly one of those rays, and then the 4 minor rays you have, well, you actually have all of them within you, but the 4 minor rays, you usually have 2 of those minor rays. Like I'm a ray 3 with a ray 5 and ray 7 flow of energy. Okay, so understanding that you're one of the major 3 rays, one of those first, and then you can find out how your life flow is, and then you can understand if you're part of a ray 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. Ray 4 is like JJ said, it is idealism, but it's also devotion, and devotion is
Ray 6.
kind of a ray that's starting to get dim because the devotion factor, people are getting kind of away from it and becoming more realistic of religious realms. So that ray is.
Our monads is.
Go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, what? Yeah, our monads is on one of the 3 major rays. Other parts of our personality can be on any one of the 7, but okay. There's
Hey, JJ.
yeah.
Hey, I have a quick comment. I know probably the least amount about the rays as anyone on this group, but I wanted to comment that what you just taught is so perfectly explained what's happening to me as I take the soul contact course, because early in it I experienced some, I would read the lesson from the course, and then I experienced my soul teaching it to me, and it's 2 different things. The reading and trying to put it together in my mind from just what I'm reading is way different than my soul teaching me. And now I'm to the point where I stay on one lesson. It doesn't matter if it takes 2 weeks, and I keep rereading it and meditating on it until my soul teaches me what I need to understand about it. And I didn't know anything about the rays, and so, but that looked like a beautiful illustration between ray 3 and ray 7, what you were just teaching. Yeah. And now I refuse to go on until my soul teaches me and gives me that bigger perspective, and I see how it fits in with everything else of the previous lessons, and I don't want to go on until I can plug that piece of the puzzle in.
Well, this is an important thing for disciples and students to realize, is to not rush ourselves. As a lot of people, when they first find some higher knowledge that's available, they want to become a master overnight. And and one of the things that DK puts a lot of emphasis on is the parable of the tortoise and the hare. And he points out that the tortoise always wins because he proceeds step by step and doesn't give up and doesn't stop, whereas the hare just fools around and he winds up losing the race. And he says that just going step by step, a little bit at a time, is you wind up getting more progress because you don't give up, you don't quit, and you just keep moving ahead. And he says that's the way that everybody eventually achieves liberation. Yeah, and everybody wants a big shortcut all the time, and usually a shortcut turns out to be a detour that takes away time. Okay, anything else before we move on?
A master once said, impatience spoils the plan.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a big hurdle for students to overcome, is to garner a little bit of patience and realize that things take time. Okay, been a great group today, and we will plan on getting together next Sunday at 10 a.m. all being well. So we will see you next week.
Thanks, JJ.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, JJ.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.